Do you have constitutional questions? Get constitutional answers. We'll be answering your constitutional questions live, so get ready to call in now. Are you a prosecutor, law enforcement officer, or local government employee? Want to make sure you are executing the laws in a constitutional manner? Are you a city council member, township board member, or state legislator? Want to ensure the laws you pass are constitutional? Perhaps you're a citizen who wants to know the proper limits on government and the protections for your God-given liberties. Regardless of your role, call me, Constitutional Attorney Catherine Henry, with your constitutional questions during our live call-in show now at the phone number listed on the screen. And remember, together we can restore freedom.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you guys hear me now? You should be able to hear me now. Still no audio. Really? Let me see. I'm not muted. Still no sound. Okay, Lori's saying sound now. Okay, when you guys say that, just so you know, I'm never muted. It's not an issue of the mute button. It's an issue of, I don't know, this time, it's different every single time, but it's never, ever, ever been an issue of being muted. This time it was that the device was set to the right one, but then somehow not, and I had to reselect the right microphone, you know, for fun, I guess. But anyway, welcome. I'm Constitutional Attorney Catherine Henry, and this is our next episode of Restore Freedom Weekly. I'm going to take a sip here of my root beer Zevia. If you guys haven't tried that stuff, it's awesome. It's healthy. There's no color. There's no carbs. There's no caffeine. Ended my Diet Coke addiction about 8 years ago with that stuff. It's awesome. Anyway, so let me see. So it sounds like everybody's saying they can hear me now, or it looks like everybody's saying they can hear me now. So that's good. Yeah, just so you guys know in the future, don't just tell me it's muted because it's not muted. There's some sort of setting. I guess OBS doesn't always like to play nice. I don't know, but it's the free one I have. So it's what we got to work with. All right, so I see that there was a question posted 20 minutes before we went live, and then let's see if there's anything else. Okay. All right. Let's see. But I do appreciate you guys telling me when you can't hear me, because then it alerts me, you know, to go searching for whatever problem there might be. So just keep in mind, it's just not the mute button. So I am blonde. This is my natural hair color, but I'm not that blonde that I would consistently have myself muted. It's just that it resets whatever the default device is, apparently every time, even though I check it before, you know, I checked it at 10 o'clock this morning and it was fine. Anyway, yeah, so Lori put in the comment section there what it would look like. So put the word question, just that one word in all caps, helps my eyes catch it when there's like, you know, tons of comments. You guys are starting to talk back and forth and, you know, have discussion amongst yourselves. Then when I see the word question, it kind of pulls me to go, oh, okay. Again, if just the word question is in all caps, it just helps me to see it easier. And then put your question in there and it'll be great. So that's how I was able to easily see that I have a question waiting for me. And blue line transparency, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm wrong, but I think that this is a case you brought up 2 weeks ago during our last live show. And I had said I hadn't heard of it. And you said it was a new US Supreme Court case. And I said that I would take a look. And I'm going to be honest with you, the last 2 weeks have been extremely draining on me. I have not had a chance to take a look at, and I totally forgot about it. And I'm just going to take a step back and just remind you guys, or for those of you who are perhaps new to the show, I've been doing the live call-in shows, the call-in aspect. I only recently figured out. Hold on a second. I realize you guys might have a lot of background noise in here, and I apologize. Dude. But I have 2 visitors with me today. One is learning about technology. Slide over. Say hi. If you can't see your face on the screen, they can't see you.
Hi.
This is Emma. She is 11 years old. She is homeschooled, and she is learning today about technology and how to do all kinds of things. So hopefully she'll gain a lot of information about the republic, the great constitutional republic in which we live as well today. Go ahead and scoot back over, babe. So because she is in here and I am in here, that means our puppy has to be in here because he's been chewing everything. And so the puppy is the one making the sound in the background. But at any rate, so I apologize to you guys if you can hear random sounds every now and then because that's the dog with his bone. Hopefully not eating the law books or the homeschool books behind me. So, oh, you got some hellos from Lori and Amy. You probably don't know who she is, but that's okay. She's saying hi to you. You could just say hi back. Yes, and Maverick is in the video. That yellow dog, that golden retriever back there is Maverick, the oh my gosh, the puppy who likes to eat soccer cleats and volleyball knee pads right when soccer and volleyball seasons are beginning. It's so great. Anyway, so to get on to what I was telling you guys, for those of you who are new, very briefly, I'll just let you know that it's been less than a year since I've been diagnosed with breast cancer, and I ended up having 3 major surgeries, August, September, and November. And the latest one especially was the most devastating for me, but I'm still physically not up to par. Okay, so I get exhausted pretty quickly, and it's mental and physical exhaustion, but I'm emotionally exhausted because in a large way, I went through this alone. And just me and Mike and Emma have had extremely little family support. And my dad came down several times to help, and I greatly appreciate that. But he also lives in Michigan, so it's hard for him to continually be here and help. And so I haven't even seen him since he left in November. Anyway, so I just want to let you guys know this is not my, if you've been new within the last year, if you're new to my channel, if you're new to all the work that I'm doing, please know this is not my standard of practice. This is not how I treat requests for information. This is not my work ethic. It's just my physical inability to do it all. Now, what I will let you guys know also is that within the last 2 weeks, I've had basically surprise opportunities to go up to the Florida State Capitol twice. And I'm so used to going to the Michigan State Capitol that I kept telling people I was going to Lansing. No, I was not going to Lansing. I was going to Tallahassee, which is actually much farther from my home than Lansing was when I lived in Midland, in Belding, or in Hudsonville. But anyway, so I had a wonderful opportunity thanks to Maya Hahn. She is leading the charge for the Make America Healthy Again Florida Coalition here in Florida. And we had a great opportunity to take a chartered bus we took it from Daytona. Emma and I took it from Daytona all the way to Tallahassee. And let's see, it probably was a 4.5 hour drive, maybe a little bit longer, one way. And we had just a great opportunity to speak with legislators, legislative aides, to meet with new random people, who were just there for other reasons and they wanted to learn more about our signs and our stickers and things like that. So it was a great opportunity. Anyway, we had an even better opportunity to follow up. And I went with Maya and a few other people last Monday and Tuesday to Tallahassee, made sure I was saying the right capital name there. And we were actually able to go to legislative committee hearings and speak on the very bills that we had been advocating for the week prior. So that was a wonderful opportunity. Unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity to speak at all of the committee hearings we went to, because in some of them, if we had chosen to speak, we would have run the bill out of time, and the bills we're in favor of, we don't want to run them out of time. In fact, that's something I wanted to bring up today real quick. I know you had a question on there, and I'm not avoiding that question. I'm getting there. But in Florida, this is a different process. Well, quite frankly, all states probably have a totally different process. But something that's definitely happening in Florida that you need to know about, if you have a bill that you travel, and to me, this is insane. Like, Lansing is great in Michigan because it's in the middle of the state, like the legit middle. Yeah, it's farther for people from the UP, but if you look at how the population is distributed, you have the Detroit side, you have the Grand Rapids side, you have Ann Arbor, Lansing itself. I mean, that has the bulk, along that corridor at the bottom has the bulk of the population. And then it is a little bit farther north. It's not like, down way at the bottom of the state. But it just offers a much better opportunity for people to come from all over the state and speak on issues. So like I said, when I lived in Midland, you're from Michigan, when I lived in Midland over here, I had to travel that way, and it wasn't that far. I don't remember exactly, 45 minutes to an hour maybe to the capital. When I lived in Belding or Hudsonville, both of them basically about an hour to get to Lansing, because it's in the middle. And that's very important. So here, there's a lot of people disenfranchised. If you live in Miami, good luck ever getting to the capital. You have to have an overnight stay. You have to be able to afford the travel plus a hotel and, meals while you're up there, because it is an all day, if not 2-day event just for one committee hearing. For us, like I said, from the Daytona, Ormond Beach area, it is a 9-hour round trip if you don't get stuck in traffic. 9 hours just for the drive alone. So it's really disenfranchising to a lot of people. I mean, think of, Orlando is not that far from me. They have a little bit of time cut off their trip. But, Jacksonville is quite a ways. They're about an hour and a half north of me. Melbourne, Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral, that's all south of me. Vero Beach, all that's south of me. And that's even farther for them. Same thing, Sarasota, Tampa, that whole area. It's very disenfranchising. If you look at the geography of where our state capital is, it's hard to get there. Now, here's the thing. I say all that to tell you. So you have, in our state, and a lot of you who don't live here in Florida, you visit here or you have family here. And so this is stuff that I want you to know, and I'm going to tell you why in just a minute, but follow with me for a minute. So, for me, 9-hour round trip at least to go and speak on some committee hearings, right? So to speak on some bills. And there were, I don't believe any of the ones that we were fighting hard against were heard in committee that we knew of. Okay, because it's impossible to stay up on all the bills all the time because they move constantly. But there were several that we knew were going to be in committee hearings while we were there. In fact, one got assigned to a committee while we were there. Or let me say, added to an agenda. Just being assigned to a committee doesn't mean it's going to be heard. It has to be added to that committee's agenda. And so anyway, you travel all that way and you're working so hard on your speech and trying to figure out what you're going to say. If you live here in Florida, don't ever prepare a speech more than 3 minutes long, ever, if you're going to the Capitol. And I would suggest no matter what state you're in, don't ever prepare a speech more than 3 minutes long. That is your max. You might often have an opportunity to only speak for, say, a minute and a half or a minute, maybe even 30 seconds. I've been at committee hearings where it was cut down to 30 seconds. In fact, I was at a committee hearing where my time was denied They read it off that I just waved in support instead of choosing to speak on a very important parental rights bill. Let's see, I think that was the House side. So I want to say House Bill 1505. Companion bill was 1288 in the Senate. But the day before was in the House, in that committee. I think it was Health and Human Services, huge committee, full committee, not a subcommittee. And there were so many people there, so many bills being heard at that time, and then so many people there, even just for the bill we were there for, that it was, it was cutting it close on the 2 hours that they were supposed to be done with the meeting. So they're scheduled to be done, I want to say at 3:30. And problem is, I think they started at 1:30. They were scheduled to be done at 3:30. What I did not know, and this is the part I really want you guys to understand, is that at the end of the committee hearing, whatever bills are not heard, scratch that. Whatever bills do not have a favorable vote, by the time that committee meeting has ended, they're done. They're killed. They're dead. Okay? So if you have a bill that you like, and we were there to speak, there were tons of us there to speak on behalf of this bill, and all of a sudden the committee chair inappropriately assumed that we were all waving, and she kept reading names. But then all of a sudden the people that were opposing the bill were demanding their time to speak, and they rightfully should. They were opposed to the bill that we wanted, granted, but they have that right to speak to their legislative representatives. So, but then, she gave them, say a minute, I think it was a minute at that point, or 30 seconds, something like that. But then one after another kept wanting to speak. And so because so many of them were speaking against the bill and not a single person had spoken in favor of the bill, I was getting nervous. As an attorney, I'm like, whoa, the record is going to reflect that no one spoke on behalf. Someone needs to get up there and say something. Even if I get up there and say, I'm here as a constitutional attorney to speak on this bill, but because the time is limited, all I want to say at this point is there are many people that showed up today, and we are all in favor of, and we were all going to speak to an element of this bill and why it needs to pass this committee today. But because of the limitations on time, we have all waived our opportunity to speak on that. And I just want this reflected in the record. That's all I wanted to say at that point. So I went to the Sergeant of Arms and I said, I have a question for you. Can you confirm for me? I was just told that if the bill doesn't get voted on favorably at the end of this committee, by the time they're done meeting, will it kill the bill? And he said, yes. And I said, oh my gosh, but it seems wrong that the only people getting the opportunity to speak are the ones against it. I'm torn. I said, can you ask the sponsor of the bill, who was sitting in the front of the room, in front of the committee? I said, can you ask her if she wants no one to speak? If that's what she still wants, I will go along with that. But I don't want, if things have changed and she no longer wants that, she wants at least someone to make that record clear that we were all there ready to speak. I wanted to lay down that record. So here's the thing. We all drove all that way to speak. And I was mad that my time was stripped from me without my permission, because I didn't know the situation at that point. Sorry, guys, I'm going to have to, it is on silent. You can't hear me again? Okay. Okay, so Nick is saying his audio is still good, so leave the stream and come back. I apologize, guys. I can't do reading and talking at the same time. Lori's saying no audio. Okay, but some other people are saying that they can hear, so audio is loud and clear. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. Thank you, guys. Big Mike Audix, Blue Line Transparency. Okay, yes. So thank you so much, guys, for confirming that for me. And I'm glad I finally looked at my phone, because it is on silent, but Lori and Mike can still get through when it's on silent, because they might be trying to tell me, hey, you have no audio. Anyway, so my point on this is this. I was not told until as it was unfolding that if that bill did not get a favorable vote, if they discussed the bill and they had testimony and all that, but they simply ran out of time to take a vote, then it would have killed the bill. I didn't know that until it was unfolding. So I'm torn between, okay, I don't want that to happen, but I don't know that it would pass without us being able to say something. And if it doesn't, I at least want the record to reflect that there were many of us here ready and willing to speak, but just not given the time, so I was torn, right? But I just want you guys to know that you have to be willing to not take your time to speak if your bill looks like it's just not going to have enough time. Now, they ended up voting to have an extra 15 minutes, which gave this bill enough time to be heard. If I remember correctly, there were some bills that died, though. There were definitely some bills that died in that committee hearing because they did not have enough time to be heard. Okay, Mike is telling me the audio is fine. I just want you guys to know that. Now, so more of you need to stand up and speak. Speak to your local city council members, your county commission. Speak to your state legislators. Don't be afraid. And if you live in Florida or a state like Florida that has a very short legislative session, get in there now, because your time to act on these bills is fleeting, okay? So you need to make your voice heard and get to the Capitol and have face-to-face interactions if at all possible. Even if you just want to fill in an appearance card that says, this is who I am, organization if you have one, this is my address, and I'm here and I wave in support or I wave in opposition to this bill. You can only fill those out and submit them in person. So, go ahead and do that ahead of time. Show up at the beginning of the meeting, have that in there so that it is at least read on the record that someone showed up in support. And if you have an organization that you're speaking on behalf of, that, to me, that was important to hear. Oh, Americans for Prosperity. Oh, they're here in support on this bill. Okay. They were waving in support because they didn't want to run the time clock down. Not on that particular bill. They were speaking on or waving in support on a couple other bills we were there for. But at any rate, it's very important to be heard. But you also have to be willing to not be heard if your bill is going to be killed because of it. Now, our bills that we were in favor of were pushed later and later on the agendas as committee hearings were happening, and we were getting concerned. A couple of times the meetings were voted to be extended. That happened at least that happened 3 times in committee hearings. But if that doesn't happen, and sometimes it was only for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, the very last committee hearing that we attended, our bill was heard, but it was only the 4th bill to be heard in that committee hearing. That was the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing last Tuesday, April 1st. And the president of the Senate had given them permission to meet continuously until all the bills on the agenda had been heard, which that's rare. But he announced that I think around the time our bill was being heard, or right as our bill had passed through that committee. So they ended up meeting at least until 8 p.m. that day. But I mean, they could have, there were 16 bills that were waiting to be heard. So they could have been there all night. At any rate, just know that, okay? And I say that because, you need to know what you're risking. Now, I tried to give that knowledge to somebody else when we, the next day, when we were looking at another bill. That was the Patient Bill of Rights, where you can't be, the bill we were advocating for, the change, is that doctors' offices, healthcare providers cannot discriminate based on vaccination status. That's the bill we were advocating for. That's the bill that DeSantis and Surgeon General Latipo's office are pushing in the House and the Senate here. And so it was very important to us that bill got through. I want to say that's House Bill 1299 and Senate Bill 1270 for the state of Florida. And so even if you don't live here, even if you just visit here, imagine you're on vacation and you have some sort of medical emergency, but you didn't get the COVID shot, and then they want to deny you care while you're down here because of that. That would be awful. This is going to affect people from all over, not just those people that live here in the state of Florida. At any rate, it was looking like that bill might be close to, meeting that cutoff and dying just because of lack of time, and that all of us in favor of the bill might have to waive in support, which was very disheartening. But we tried to let the other people know, hey, if this doesn't, if they don't extend the time, whatever, this is what we might be looking at. So I tried to share this information with another person that I recognized was there for our cause, and I had helped her fill out the form and put what bill number and what amendment number and things like that, so she knew exactly how to submit it to speak. And I of course wanted her to speak, but I wanted to make sure she knew what she was risking, because I did not have that knowledge just 24 hours prior in a different committee hearing. And that would suck for her if she's the reason why the bill is killed, or part of the reason, and she didn't even know that she could be contributing to that, right? So I just wanted to make sure she knew that. It's still, of course, her choice if she wanted to speak, but I asked her if she could speak with me right outside where you could still look through. There's a vestibule, there's glass, but at least if we're speaking, we're not interrupting, and we're not going to get kicked out because we're interrupting the hearing. And she refused to do that. And she assumed I was telling her that she shouldn't talk because Maya, Han, and I were going to be the only ones speaking if we're close on time. No, not at all. And the irony of that is that just the day prior, in that other committee hearing, there was a mom who was involved with the new language being proposed on that parental rights bill, 1505. And she came up to me when I was talking to the Sergeant of Arms to confirm that the bill might actually die if they run out of time. She came up to me and demanded that I sit down because I shouldn't speak. In fact, if anyone is going to speak on that bill, it's going to be her out-of-town attorney from Georgia, who she flew all the way there to speak on this bill. You know what? I told her, I don't work for you. Thank you. I'll make my own decisions. So at any rate, I'm not one to tell someone you don't have the right to speak at a hearing. I just want to make sure people have the knowledge, especially here in Florida. Now that I know that's how it works, I want to make sure you guys know how that works as well. So at any rate, I'm sorry that took so long to tell you that, all of you guys, but anyway, there's important movement on some bills. There's some Second Amendment legislation that you guys need to be paying attention to. Again, even if you just visit here, that impacts you. If you're used to open carrying in Michigan, for example, and you want to come down here on vacation, you need to know that you can't just open carry here because they do it backwards. You can concealed carry. And generally speaking, the exceptions are the same, but there's still stupid exceptions because they don't understand the Constitution. But there's some bills that are being introduced to help restore some of those constitutionally protected rights in that realm. Anyway, medical freedom, chemtrails, you name it, the whole 9 yards. So at any rate, it's important to know. So because of all that and the timely nature of that, and I didn't know that I was going to be going there, I knew on Sunday that I was going to be leaving like 6 o'clock Monday morning to go to Tallahassee for 2 days. So I haven't had a chance, and I totally forgot to read that case. And I'm sure it's extremely important. If somebody wants to email me the link to the Supreme Court website, so I know I'm looking at the exact case that you're talking about, I would gladly look it up and read the decision. Or if you just want to email me the PDF of the Supreme Court decision, I would gladly take a look at that. Anyway, so I'm not seeing, that was the only question. Oh yeah. Let's see. Okay, so John Q. Public did ask, what do you think of what is going on with the legal system in Tucson, I think it's Pima County, Arizona, concerning prosecuting Lane Myers? So I don't know all the specifics, and I might be mixing it up with a different case, so I apologize if I am, but the documents that I read, the court documents that I read, and I think it's that case, it's not right. And I'm pretty sure I'm remembering the right case. So this is where he's being charged with stalking or harassment or something, and all he was doing was contacting someone who works at a public university in their professional capacity. And I want to say it was one time, and then he did some videos talking about how he wasn't getting responses and how he, this person went and try to get, a PPO against him and all that. And he has every right to make the videos about that. And they somehow are saying that's harassment. That is a load of garbage. The fact that that case has even made it as far as it has, all the judges that have touched that case and haven't immediately thrown any of it out and reprimanded the people trying to bring those causes of action, they should be disbarred. But at any rate, attorneys, Diesel for We the People News. Why do attorneys not use substantive due process? I'm not sure what you mean by that. I certainly argue substantive due process claims. In fact, if you go to my website, you type in substantive due process, assuming my search function works correctly, because I can't guarantee that, you'll see a ton of legal briefs where I've submitted things talking about substantive due process. In fact, my case in Allegan, when I appealed twice, two of my appeals, I should say, that were interlocutory in nature during the course before the trial has happened. In other words, two of my appeals that went to the Court of Appeals were on substantive due process claims. So I did have a separate appeal I filed about procedural due process issues where they were screwing me over just in how the case was unfolding, but the substantive due process, the substance of my rights, my First Amendment freedom of speech and freedom of the press and all that kind of stuff, for example, that stuff I definitely raised, and I regularly raise those issues. Okay, so yes. And yeah, so about Lane Myers, yes, it is Foshin. This is a public service that gave me some of the documents to review. I reviewed them, and 2 weeks ago, he and I were going to do a joint live stream talking about it, but then he told me last minute he wasn't able to do it, and then he was going to have to give me a call, and I'm still waiting. So hopefully he's not in jail somewhere because, well, I know Foshin. So, did you see we have a new, okay. I'm going to try to take these in order the best I can. I do see Troy Scott has a very good question. But first, Blue Line Transparency asked, more broadly than that new case, where should a line be with free speech and speech that is harassing? Okay, so I can answer that. So you definitely, some people take the extreme view that any speech you do, any kind of expression you do, is protected under the First Amendment, and you have the right to be. Stop messing around with that. You're supposed to be listening. Taking notes, girl. You haven't taken a single note. Oh my goodness, this homeschool lesson has gone awry. You're still gonna have to do history for the day if you're not paying attention to the social studies stuff we're talking about now. Anyway, so for those of you just tuning in, I'm talking to the 11-year-old sitting next to me. At any rate, so we, you better write down what topics we were talking about. Okay. Anyway, so that's not, you can't say anything you want and just never have accountability for that. Okay. So if you say, let's take an extreme example. If I use words to indicate I'm threatening to harm or kill someone, then I need to be held accountable for that. If I'm putting someone in imminent fear, in fear of imminent bodily harm, that is criminal assault. Or yeah, that's criminal assault. So that's not okay. If I am exposing, if I choose to somehow get a hold of, let's say somebody in the chat is harassing me. They're giving me a hard time. I say the word harassing loosely there, but say they're giving me a hard time. And I decide I really don't like their comments. And I turn on my investigative skills and I decide, ooh, I'm going to find out their social security number and their birth date and their home address. And I put all that information, their bank accounts, I put all that information online and I say, have at it, world. Show this person what they're all about, whatever, right? That's not just even harassment. I mean, those are crimes, right? You can't share someone's protected private information like that. So that's not okay. So now when you harass someone, it depends on if it is actual harassment. If it is actual harassment, then no, you shouldn't be able to harass someone. But when you are communicating with someone and you are either voicing an actual grievance, or you are asking an actual question of a government official in their government capacity, then that's not harassment. If the person who works in the government can't put their big boy pants on and separate their personal feelings from the questions being asked, then they need to resign. But that is not actual harassment. So to answer your question, speech that is actually harassing, menacing, threatening, verbal and emotional insults that are nonstop, every day, multiple days, ongoing days, right? And it's something like, I hope you and your family get what's coming to you. And, when I started speaking out during 2020 publicly against what the government was doing, what the legislature was doing, Republican controlled, what our governor was doing, Governor Whitmer in Michigan, speaking out against the executive order, speaking out against the way the current law was written, speaking out against all that kind of stuff, I got death threats. I got a lot of death threats. I got a lot of hate mail. I got people literally sending me mail. I got people sending me emails. I got people texting me. I got people doing all kinds of stuff, calling me to be nasty and to harass me. And the thing is, one time to voice some sort of grievance with me when I was putting myself out in a public manner like that, yeah, it's not nice, but one act by itself is not harassment. I mean, the death threats are not okay. One time for a death threat is enough, right? But the people that were just being nasty one time, that's not harassment. If they had continually harassed me every single day, then that would be a problem, right? So it's there is a line there, but you actually have to commit a crime. And what Lane Myers did was not a crime. He did not actually harass anybody. He certainly didn't threaten anybody. So hopefully that answers your question, Blue Line Transparency. So you also asked, I am charged with a crime like Lane Myers for using one single word, snitch. That's interesting. I don't know the background on that, but I think that's awful. And certainly I'd like to know more. But so for example, I definitely used that word, snitch, when I was talking in 2020 and 2021 about the executive orders, because that's exactly what the Michigan governor and the attorney general were trying to get people to do. They literally were telling people that if you see your neighbor outside and we have the state locked down, then you should snitch on them. You should tell the police so they could come and get, they could be arrested and locked up for endangering humanity by breathing fresh air. So I definitely use that word myself. And in that sense, that is the concept of snitching, because someone isn't doing something that's inherently wrong by literally going outside, standing on their sidewalk in front of their house, for example. But that is exactly what the governor was trying to prohibit. She didn't have the legal authority to do it. And so by trying to make some sort of citizenry Gestapo to enforce her illegitimate executive orders, yeah, I was calling those acts of being a snitch. So anyway, depending on the concept, let me put it this way. Anytime you call someone a snitch, I can't imagine that just calling someone a snitch is going to make you criminally liable for anything. It's not it's not a threat. It's not, I mean, it depends on what you said. If you coupled that with some sort of death threat, for example, that it's more the death threat, that would be the problem. But anyway, so Troy Scott, though, asked, what are your thoughts on unions? Do I love them or hate them? Now, here's the thing. I personally hate unions. They can be good. They started off as good. If you ever read, what is the book? Zola. It's on my bookshelf behind me somewhere. But it's a book about the historical fight between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie and, basically the working class and leadership and the struggles and how they, it's been like 20 years since I've read the book. So forgive me if I'm not giving it the best service here. And I have to make myself notes about the things that we talk about, otherwise I forget. But anyway, the whole concept is that people finally started uniting, and they realized that, gosh, there are a lot more of us than there are of them. And if we unite, if we essentially create a union and start fighting back, we can make some changes and, for the better. I mean, things were really grim. People dying, people getting very sick, people living in harsh conditions, things like that. So at any rate, the start of labor unions was good. It was well-intentioned. It served a purpose. When I was a public defender for the state of Minnesota, however, and I was a Democrat at the time too. So you think I would have been like, yay, labor unions. And in general, I was. But then my first concept of like, whoa, these guys, I don't want anything to do with this. I was a single mom, and I worked for the state of Minnesota as an assistant public defender. And the way that my rural county handled it is that I was the only assistant public defender. I was the only public defender handling all misdemeanors, child protection cases, and juvenile delinquencies in my 2 counties, I think it was 2 counties. And at any rate, but that was only considered half-time work. So I still worked half-time for another, for a private law firm. And anyway, for my half-time, I got $22,000 gross, which is gross, right? There I am with law school loans and doing vast amounts of work that far exceed, a 20-hour work week. And I'm only getting paid $22,000 gross. And not only were taxes taken out and Social Security, all that fun stuff, but I had forced labor dues, union dues taken out. So if I wanted to be a voting member, I had to pay 100%. If I didn't want to be a voting member, I still had to pay 80%. And I had to pay into the mandatory state retirement system, which as soon as I quit and moved to Michigan, they forced me out of that and into the private sector. And the second my funds hit my IRA that I had set up, I lost 3/4 of it right then and there. So they took my money out, made me put it into this retirement system, and then forced me to put it into the private sector. And then right at the time when it was, in 2008, when the market was tanking. So I'm not for anything forced coming out of your paycheck. Taxes, it's a whole nother conversation that we should have. But just putting the taxes aside for a minute, anything else is an absolute no-go. So labor unions, that's one thing that I have against them, right? Because oftentimes people are forced into paying for that. But number 2, oftentimes labor unions are given the credit for speaking on behalf of people, even if they're not in the union. So you have, say, 60% of your workforce might be unionized and then 40% is not. Then those labor unions, when they speak as though they're speaking on behalf of all 100% of the employees. Absolutely not. If I choose to be part of the 40% that's not unionized, you have no right to speak on my behalf, period. Also, labor unions, the bosses of those unions, of any of them, I don't think there's a good or bad side. I think they're all bad, because the bosses receive huge salaries and kickbacks and all kinds of things. I have yet to find a good labor union that still exists that truly supports the needs of their constituents. So at any rate, I think they're terrible, but the purpose behind them is good. They're just corrupt is really what it boils down to, and forced. It should never be forced. Anyway, so Amy also had asked, wow, you guys asked like a series of good questions all within 1 minute of each other. So I'm super late in getting to the later ones now because so I was still answering the first ones. But anyway, Amy asked, not sure if I'm asking the correct question, but does self-defense come into play in any way when the government is actively spraying chemicals on us, poisoning food, etc., poisoned food, etc., or not relevant? Okay, so self-defense. I'm not sure where you're going with that. Perhaps, I don't know if you're thinking of like, are you going to be, are you thinking it's drones that are spraying the chemicals and you're going to shoot down an unmanned drone? And so you're claiming self-defense for that? I mean, there's so much more to the scenario. I don't know exactly, but definitely as far as speaking out against them, here in the state of Florida, I don't know if you guys have seen on the news, but a lot of conservatives, unfortunately, have been touting victory by House Bill 477 passing through committee last Tuesday, April 1st. Well, yeah, joke's on them, April Fools, because what they did, the committee voted unanimously to approve of an amendment to the bill that gutted the whole bill. Then they voted, excuse me, guys. Then they voted to pass the bill. So now the hard part is, you might think, hold on a second. Okay, that I actually muted myself because I'm trying not to cough in the microphone. All right, so what are you doing? Don't focus on the dog. He's sleeping. Take notes. Okay. So at any rate, during that committee hearing, in order to get the bill on the agenda for the committee, because that's the next committee that bill was assigned to, the sponsor of the bill, and I can't remember the representative's name on that. Anyway, and he was, yeah, anyway, I've seen him face to face, and I was watching what he was doing on another committee the day before, and we spoke to his legislative aide for quite a while. But anyway, that representative, in order to get his bill, House Bill 477, on the committee's agenda, he was forced to introduce an amendment that basically gutted the bill. And it just made it so that you got a $10,000 fine if you didn't have a permit for your weather modification or chemtrails. Okay, he didn't want the amendment to go through, but he was going to be denied the opportunity to have his bill even put on the agenda for the committee, and it would kill the bill if he didn't introduce an amendment. So he didn't strongly advocate. In fact, he literally said, because his job, when he has an amendment, his job is he has to introduce the bill and he has to introduce the amendment. He has to say what it does. And this is how he said, he explained how the bill was going to change the law. And then he said, when it came to the amendment, he goes, well, the amendment is essentially a strike all amendment, and it will put the law back exactly how it is. It will just provide a $10,000 penalty if a person or organization does not have a permit before utilizing chemtrails or weather modification techniques. That's what he said. I'm pretty sure it's almost word for word. You guys can watch the video online if you want. But at any rate, that's essentially what he said. He did not advocate for it, and he did his best to explain exactly what it did in a way that should have told all of them, if they were paying attention, don't vote for this garbage. But he couldn't do that because leadership was like, anyway, he was doing the best he could to make sure his bill saw the light of day. And unfortunately, I didn't realize what was happening, and all I did was submit a comment saying I waived in opposition to the amendment, but in support of the bill. So Maya Hahn ended up speaking in opposition to the amendment. Actually, no, she didn't. She spoke in support of the bill, but reference that it would be the bill as originally written without that amendment. So unfortunately, a lot of conservatives, though, said, hey, that bill passed committee. Yeah, it did. And it was gutted before it even made it out of the committee. So now it's a totally different version, making it through the next stages. That's why Governor DeSantis took to Twitter the next day, and he did a press conference talking about calling out all the leadership BS in the Florida legislature and how they're trying to play these political games because they're mad at him, and how he's supporting the Senate version because as of now, the Senate version has not been gutted. And they have an opportunity, if both bills go through both houses, they have the opportunity to relinquish their version essentially and go ahead and support the Senate version. So anyway, hopefully that answers your question. But yes, we were speaking in defense of all of our health, talking about the chemical stuff that's being sprayed. Okay, so scrolling through. Let's see. Well, Big Mike Audits, I see that you live in the Upper Peninsula, so hopefully that means you and your whole community are doing fine and your power has been restored. I don't miss living in Michigan with the weather, and certainly with the ice storms that you guys got. Yeah, looks like it's been extremely rough up there recently. So I am not sure about that. Somebody's probably just a troll and not even on here anymore. You have rights, cops have duties is their handle. Says legal this, legal that. I'm not really sure what that's in reference to. Seems like it might be an insult, but go for it. Let's see. I'm not seeing any other questions, and I didn't put on the screen. Okay, okay, I feel like I might have, I feel like it might have skipped some when I'm scrolling because I have like, a 3-inch screen that it scrolls through on my end. And who's Kate? Anyway, okay. So I don't see any more questions. If I skipped one, then okay, so you have rights, cops have duties. Apparently you're still on. Good to know. Oh, you're one of those. No. Okay, so you have rights, cops have duties says there are no lawyers in the United States. They are all licensed state bar attorneys. Guys, that's nonsense. And if you're gonna come out with the whole like, oh, bar is British accredited registry or whatever other BS you have, like, dude, that's not a thing. And Lori might have found one of the episodes that she posted the link for in there. Please take a look at that because I go into all the detail. I like you as a human. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I will agree with you that most attorneys are awful. I will agree with you that most attorneys don't know the Constitution. And even some that do know the Constitution don't give a shit and they just fight for their own best interests and getting a fat paycheck. But I'm the attorney who fought for free in the Michigan Supreme Court against the governor's executive orders in 2020. I'm the attorney who's fighting in the Florida Court of Appeals right now in a way that hopefully my case, when I win, will impact millions of homeowners in the state of Florida and hopefully beyond, because government officials get it wrong all the time and they need to be held accountable. And attorneys are a big part of the problem. Absolutely. But don't assume that every single attorney is bad or awful or that they have their allegiances elsewhere, because that's not the case. Just like saying all cops are bad. No, not all cops are bad. Unfortunately, a lot of them are bad or misinformed, but not all of them. Now, I'd like to know what state you, so you have rights, cops have duties. I would like to know what state you're in, because you say nonsense while the state bar is the one that exclaimed that to me. No, that's not correct. And each state does it differently. So you can't assume whatever your state bar told you has any bearing on any other state. Okay, so for example, in the state of Minnesota, I was not, after my free year of membership, I did not renew. I was a member, a licensed attorney in the state of Minnesota, but I was not a member of the bar because I didn't choose to be. Now, Michigan, unfortunately, it's the State Bar of Michigan that's the licensing and regulatory agency. So you get licensed to practice law through the State Bar of Michigan. But they don't speak on my behalf, certainly not with all their policies and their attacks on the Trump administration and everything that they're doing recently. It's awful. But I'd like to know what state you're from, because that will also have, give me an inside idea on what, whatever, where you're coming from with that. And don't worry about getting off on the wrong foot. I'm genuinely curious about what state you're calling from or you're commenting from, because that would give me an idea of the background, right? What information you've been given. Let's see. So John Q. Public says, are there any constitutional limits to this officer safety by law enforcement during vehicle stops? Okay, so I have not had a chance yet. I literally have had it on my calendar for a while now to read the new Pennsylvania v. Mims case, and I haven't read it. But I could tell you, regardless of what the Supreme Court says about anything, what the Constitution says is that we have rights. Now, officers as individuals have rights, but officers as officers don't have rights. And that we need to let that kind of sink in. So when officers are serving as officers, they are still people, right? So they have the right to be protected just the same as everybody else against bodily harm or things like that. But it should be just the same as everybody else. So they shouldn't, that's why we can't have situations where only officers are armed and then law-abiding citizens are told they can't be armed, because things happen, right? Mistakes or bad people, bad officers, whatever. But so that's kind of a big question, but I hope that gets at what you were asking there. So anyway, John Q. Public, that was me trying to answer that question for you. Okay, so sorry, I skipped. Oh, yikes, it skipped a whole bunch. Okay, so you have rights, cops have duties, followed up and said, you cannot represent someone if you are not licensed by the state bar. It's a racket they have built against the people. Okay, as far as that goes, I totally agree. And I've said it in many of our episodes, but I'm pretty sure I said it in the last episode. I don't think there should be licensing for virtually anything. It's possible that some things should be licensed, but so I don't want to speak categorically, but barbers and hairstylists, should they be licensed? No, it should be an optional thing as a marketing technique. Hey, I am, I went and did this specialized training, or I have this whatever. I did all these special things to make sure that I am providing a safe and proper environment as I, cut your nails or paint your nails or cut your hair or do all these things. I'm, whatever, right? But it shouldn't be a licensing thing. Same thing for, having general business licenses. Why do you have to have a general business license to have a business in a state? And I think all states do that. No, it's ridiculous. Being an attorney, there's a lot of attorneys who don't know the Constitution from a hole in the ground. So why are they the only ones that can provide representation to individuals? There's a lot of attorneys that go into courtrooms and argue just pure nonsense. Now, what I will say is that there are a lot of people who are in the movement of, you know, that attorneys have this monopoly and the bar is evil and all this stuff, right? There's a lot of people in that movement who then don't understand like proper decorum. And what I mean by that is they turn it into like as though it's their own show. They don't show respect and, you know, make sure each side has an opportunity to speak. And, you know, they don't try to learn the court rules and all that. And there's far too many court rules. There's too many levels of court rules. There's internal operating procedures. I've talked about all that stuff, and I think a lot of it is nonsense. But to at least attempt. So even though I'm not a licensed attorney for the state of Florida, for example, but when I go into courts down here, and I ended up being on Foshin's case, got sucked into that, pro hoc vice. But anyway, when I went into that courtroom, I studied up on what the local rules are for that federal court, because that's not a court that I was accustomed to. I had never practiced in that particular federal court before. So I did my best to show respect and, you know, make sure that whatever procedures they have ironed out for things, that I was going to act appropriately and, you know, with transparency, basically. So I just think that a lot of times you have people that go in there and they essentially treat it as a free-for-all. Like they should have every hearing, every opportunity in front of a judge should be just this never-ending monologue. And that's not what that is. You know, even when I've represented myself, okay, and I'm advocating the most zealous, right? I mean, who's going to be the best advocate for someone besides yourself? Even when, like, I had that Allegan County case, it took me 2 freaking years for them to finally dismiss it. I still used their procedures, their policies, their documents, their whatever. I jumped through their hoops to play their game to show them they are still wrong. I didn't go in there expecting I was just going to have endless monologue time. So anyway, there is a little bit of danger to having people, you know, in opening it up. Now, I'm not saying that's reason to not do it. I'm just saying that's going to be a natural consequence of setting aside who gets to represent people. But again, I disagree with having to have an attorney license. As an attorney, I'm saying to you, I disagree with requiring someone to have a license to practice law. And I'm licensed in five or six jurisdictions: the U.S. Supreme Court, the state of Michigan, some federal courts, a tribal court. I'm licensed in several places, but I disagree with having to have that license to practice law. So, and primarily because just to take the bar, just to have the license, you have to sit for the bar exam. And just to take the bar exam, you have to have graduated from an ABA accredited law school. And to go to an ABA accredited law school, that means you have to do law school in no less than 2.5 years, no more than 4.5 years. And in order to go to that law school, you have to go and have an undergrad degree, a 4-year bachelor's degree. And like, there's all these things that go into that. And I just think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. But at any rate, so yes, I don't think we've gotten off on the wrong foot. Okay, so, okay, I must have missed a good comment by Liberty Warrior here, but what I didn't do, and it's been an hour, and I didn't even do this yet, so I did not put the call-in screen. There we go. There we go. That's a screen I normally have up with the conversation in big, the big box and the phone number to call in right there. So I'm not going to leave it up for too long because I don't want to steal too much of your time today. I think we're able to talk about a lot of different topics. And I'm sure I didn't even write everything down. I try to keep note of all the topics we talk about, but essentially, yeah, if you have any questions, please call in. It's much better oftentimes to actually get a voice calling me and explaining the question as succinctly as possible, but putting a voice to that question. And you can do so at 616-303-0093. Now, keep in mind, I don't check that phone number any other time other than when we're doing the live call-in shows. So if you try to reach me at that phone number some other time, I'm not ignoring you, I'm not getting it. Because that is just the live call-in show number. My office number, I also don't necessarily answer every single day because I'm still not 100% and I'm doing my best. But anyway, that is not my main office number. So let's see. Okay. Somebody, I assume this is a question for me. So it says licensing equals insurable. DeSantis loves the insurance industry. I don't really care what DeSantis likes, but okay. Practicing attorney needs liability ? So in the state of Michigan, I could speak to that. It's different in each state. And like I said, I'm not a practicing attorney for Florida cases, so I'm not going to be able to answer that. I haven't researched what the answer to your question is for Florida attorneys. But for Michigan, no, you are not required to have liability insurance. And I have nothing. So if somebody wants to sue me, good luck. When you work pro bono, there's nothing to take. But no, you're not required to have liability insurance. You're not required to have, I used to have general business policy for many years, and it was money that was just going down the tubes every year. And as a small business owner, it's really hard to swallow paying a bill that's not really needed. And I am not an advocate for insurance for any reason. I think insurance is terrible and it's awful. Medical insurance, car insurance, homeowners insurance, business insurance, it's all a racket. Homeowners insurance, don't even get me started on that, because in Florida, it is way worse than any other part of the country, as far as I'm aware. I owned a house in Minnesota. I owned several houses in Michigan. And yeah, the homeowners insurance industry is far out of control here, more so than my other experiences. But anyway, so at least I can give you the answer with what my my knowledge base is. I don't know that I'm going to wait 15 minutes, but please call in. You have rights, cops have duties. Would love to have you call in. 616-303-0093. Please give us a call if you have a question that you want. And whoops. It scrolled on me. Oh, that's what you mean? Put minutes on your phone. Oh, like, I didn't think that was a thing anymore. Okay. Sorry, I didn't catch that in your first comment. What is your opinion on Karen Reed's innocent or guilt? I'm sorry, Troy Scott. I am at a loss here. I can't think of who Karen Reed is. With so much going on, with so much going on after this whole show is pretty much over, I realized I didn't even bring up once any of the stuff that's happening in the U.S. Supreme Court and all these other lower courts in trying to stop the Trump administration from deporting the illegal aliens. I had a whole thing. I wanted to talk all about that, and I didn't. So, just for reference, though, the one point I'd like to hammer home on that is, people who are not United States citizens don't just walk in illegally and then get all the same rights that we do here. They're not guaranteed due process here because they're not people. They're not we the people. They have their own set of rights and responsibilities from their own home countries. But nowhere in the world do you just walk into some other country and expect that you're going to be treated better than the citizens who are rightfully there. I mean, that just is mind-blowing to me. And that's the premise of these lawsuits that are trying to stop the Trump administration from deporting the gang members. I just, it, yeah, blows my mind. So what, honey? What? This is everyone's. Well, I'm sorry that everyone knows something I don't know. But if everyone knows that she's being framed by the cops, then I guess you don't need my opinion on it. So there you go. You have everybody else's opinion. What? Hold on a second, Liberty Warrior. Now you're losing me. You're saying she's being railroaded by good cops? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Yes, the initial crime is coming in illegally, as Lori is talking about. No, they are not. Illegal people who are here illegally are not part of We the People. They are not part of the compact that we made with our government. They have their own government. They need to go through the procedures to become a citizen and not come illegally. That's just a legal threshold. Now, I disagree with Trump when he tried to take away birthright citizenship, because I understand his reasons for doing so, but he can't do that. If you're born here, you have citizenship here. That's just how it works. There's just some things that are not, I mean, it's commonsensical in nature. Oh, thank goodness. Joy4118 is just like me and is not familiar with Karen Reed. I appreciate that there's two of us. Okay. You know what? Then people should go. So you have rights, cops have duties, says, well, Mexico treats you like part of being a part of We the People. You don't have to have papers to live in Mexico, not, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Then people should go to Mexico. If it's so wonderful, they can go to Mexico and do that. That's not how our constitutional republic is formed. That's not how the protections for We the People are written and crafted and drafted and protected in writing, enshrined in our Constitution here in the United States or in the state constitutions. That's just not how it is. If it's so wonderful in Mexico, then people certainly should go there. That's not my experience, though. And in fact, clearly, United States citizens don't have procedural protections, because that's why that couple from Michigan, I think it was two couples from Michigan, were imprisoned for a dispute about a timeshare fee, right? If you didn't know anything about that, just look up Representative Tom Barrett, a friend of mine, who went all the way down to Mexico to deal with the Mexican authorities to secure the release of the Mexican couple that was held in deplorable conditions. Excuse me, the Michigan couple held in deplorable conditions in Mexico for over a month because of a civil dispute with a timeshare, a hotel company. But you're right. Mexico treats non-citizens like they have rights. Come on. All right, so no problem, Troy Scott. But nearly everyone knows about the Karen Reed case. Again, I apologize that I don't have the information to be able to address any questions you may have on that. Oh, and Liberty Warrior says the judge is fully in on the frame job. And honestly, that doesn't surprise me. That really doesn't surprise me. So at any rate, John Q. Public, I don't even remember what question you were originally asking. You said you were not meaning about illegal immigrants, you meant about American citizens, and I don't know. I thought I finished answering your questions. The comment about the illegal immigrants was coming from me saying I had totally forgotten. I wanted to tell you guys some thoughts about the recent Supreme Court decision and the lower courts talking about these cases dealing with the courts trying to stop the Trump administration from deporting illegal immigrants who are gang members. Okay, so sorry. Liberty Warrior says, my point being, there are no good cops, or there would no, I think you're missing a word or something because I'm losing your sentence here, or there would no cops lying on the stand to frame Karen Reed. Well, you know, I love you dearly. You're like family to me, Liberty Warrior, but I disagree with you on the point that there are no good cops. There are good cops. Are they outnumbered? Oftentimes, yes. And many of them are not empowered to know what they should do when they encounter bad, more senior cops doing wrong. But, okay. There was a question, I think by Patty. Why is it almost impossible to find a civil rights attorney to help you when you don't have physical injuries? That is a very good question. I wish I had the answer for you. I myself struggled with trying to get an attorney who was willing to really lead the charge on civil case against the deputies, the sheriff, the judges, and the prosecutors involved in my Allegan County case. When I was violently arrested, I actually had physical injuries. They just weren't deemed as the main problem I was told with trying to get outside counsel besides myself to do a civil case was that I was told my arrest, the amount of time they had me detained was not long enough to really warrant a big enough financial recovery for an attorney to sink that much time into. And that's very unfortunate. Now, the person that told me that, I will say, is a very intelligent attorney. He's a small town attorney. This is not some big city attorney who just, you know, has to have flashy this and flashy that. He is a very, very good guy, very intelligent. And I trust what he's saying. But what he's saying to me is that those kinds of cases, when they're contingency fee, he has to be able to know that if he's going to put 300 hours in on a case, that he's going to have significant enough recovery that he's going to be able to recoup all of his expenses. And I understand that because I wouldn't expect him to put 300 hours in a case for free. That's his livelihood. But that's the unfortunate nature of things. Now, if I had enough funds, if you guys had all donated enough that I could have just paid an attorney outright, a retainer, and didn't have to worry about a contingency fee setup, I could have sued the crap out of all of them 2 years ago. But I didn't get donations to do that. So, I mean, I didn't even get enough donations to cover the out-of-pocket expenses that I had in just my defense of the criminal case, let alone pursuing a civil case. So, anyway, that's to answer you on that. Okay. Unless I missed any other, did I? Okay, so there's one more question that I missed. Question, what are your thoughts on Anthony Hudson, a Republican candidate for Michigan governor? Anthony Hudson? I'm going to be honest and say I don't think I've ever heard of Anthony Hudson, just like I hadn't heard of Tudor Dixon, which is why she lost, because no one knew who I lived in West Michigan, and everyone in West Michigan politics knew who I was when she ran for governor, and I didn't know who she was, so that kind of explains that. But we have a call coming in. Hello, who am I speaking with? Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Who am I speaking with?
Is this Kevin? Hi, this is Derek. I'm Blue Line Transparency. I was talking to you in the comments earlier.
It is very hard to hear you. It's like I'm hearing train tracks in the background or something.
Is it any better now?
It's a little bit better, yes. So I'm sorry. Can you tell me who you are again? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, my name is Derek. And earlier, I was commenting. My name on there is Blue Line Transparency.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, I just wanted to ask about, between free speech and harassment and where that line is. You kind of partially answered it earlier.
Wow, I talked for a long time on that, so I thought I fully answered it. But is there something specific or a follow-up question that I could answer for you now?
So I mean, maybe I can play like devil's advocate here, kind of on the prosecution side. So, I mean, the state's idea is that a person is scared because they were called a snitch, and that some unknown third parties from the internet making comments that should be the responsibility of the person that made that, an internet post. So in a way, it's kind of like the Wayne Myers case.
So I guess you still got to give me a little bit more info here. So the person was a snitch in what way?
Well, okay, so I mean, I could see if we were talking about a case where it's like a gang informant, something significant like that, but certainly not the case. In fact, a woman was having her car repossessed lawfully, and she wasn't happy about it. So she made a call to police and claimed that somebody was out burglarizing her vehicle. And that was filmed, and then the video went onto YouTube with the title being her name and snitching. And then also the camera that recorded it records an address.
Okay.
And so basically the state's concern is that somebody hearing that word alone is then going to be tempted to go commit some act of violence.
Well, so there's there's the idea of inciting violence, right? Inciting violence is not First Amendment protected speech. But looking at any of the inciting violence cases, they don't come anywhere close to what you're describing. You're not saying that, I mean, quite frankly, it's the same as if you posted information about me saying I voted for President Trump, because there's enough people with, Trump derangement syndrome that, think that it's okay to do violence to other people simply because they support Trump and his policies, right? So if you just made a video about me, going to the polling precinct and walking out and, giving thumbs up to, a Trump table as I walked past and back to my car or something, you know what I mean? Like, it'd be like that, right? People these days have lost their damn minds, and there's a lot of violence with a lot of stupid people out there, and unfortunately, a lot of, I'm going to say millennials, and maybe not in the technical sense, but in the just young, keyboard warrior kind of sense, those that are gamers, those that are just into all the social media platforms and TikToks and things like that. And reality is so far removed from them that, and violence and things like that has been more glorified, that they somehow think that they are, able to partake in these extraordinary measures to supposedly voice their concerns, right? But in ways that are truly harassing, truly threatening and violent towards, setting people's cars on fire and, doing all that kind of stuff. That is not okay. But the fact that there are people out there like that is not your responsibility.
Mhm.
So, if you make a post saying, this person is a snitch, because it's kind of like getting a YouTube whatever, like you're trying to make it catchy, right? A title or whatever, so that it's something that people are going to click on, and then they click on it and they go, oh, okay. And I'm going to be honest, it sounds like a kind of like a boring video, right? If a vehicle's being
Very.
repoed, rightfully repoed, and then somebody, the entitled brat is calling the cops saying that her vehicle's being stolen. That sounds like something where I would facepalm and go, geez, these people are so entitled. It's frustrating. But I wouldn't assume that means people are going to go out and commit some sort of act of violence against her. And certainly the reasonable person wouldn't assume that that those words are meant to incite violence. So I would say, the best line of defense in that case is to research incitement of violence. If that's their theory, is that it's harassment because it's potentially inciting violence from others, then look at the incitement to violence cases. And that it's going to, they're so far off base, there's no way they can win that.
Right. Now, the only case that I found that's pretty similar to it was actually very recent. That's the one I keep bringing up. I understand you've been very busy. So basically, this new case, this guy was infatuated with this woman in Colorado, I believe it is. This counterman guy. It was some local musician, not very famous, but goes to local bars or something like that. And he's infatuated with her, loves her music, and had sent her messages on Facebook or whatnot saying, hey, you're pretty cool. Hey, you want to meet up, have a drink sometime? She never responded to him, and it just went on for months and months and months. And it got to the point where he's sending her, I love you, let's get married, and it sounds like it just went on just like pretty crazy, and it got pretty concerning to her, to the point of like messages saying, hey, I know where you live. I just want to send you some flowers. I still wish you would talk to me. Right. But still nothing exactly threatening.
Yeah.
It's just the woman got very concerned with this, and rightfully so. But he never did actually threaten her, is what it was my take from reading the case. And they convicted him of stalking her. And it made its way to the U.S. Supreme Court just a couple of years ago. And they determined that there has to be a subjective standard in there to determine that it was his intent to make her feel threatened.
An objective standard, you mean?
No, I believe it. I believe it was subjective. That they have to determine that it was the defendant's. The jury has to determine that it was his intention to make that person frightened.
Oh, okay. So that it's not so much about subjective or objective. It's just about mens rea, that he has to have the criminal intent to make her afraid, and that makes sense. The concept that, yeah, and with any crime, it generally, that's what it should be, is that you have the criminal intent to commit the crime in order to be guilty of it. And the thing is, generally speaking, though, stalking statutes, Colorado's just stupid. So many of their laws make no sense. So I'm not even going to, talk about the specifics of what the statute might say. But generally speaking, for you to be guilty of a stalking statute, the victim has to tell you to stop communicating with them. And if she never replied, she just ignored the messages, then she, by definition, never told him to stop communicating with her. So then it wouldn't be stalking. And think about it this way, although it's not necessarily the most reasonable that he's continuing to try to reach out to her that way, maybe she's someone that doesn't read her Facebook messages very often and he didn't know how else to reach her. Or maybe I don't know, right? Maybe he felt like they had seen each other in person in passing at venues or events or something, and he's trying to follow up for a more direct conversation or whatever. I don't know. But, it's also, what if the guy is on the autism spectrum and doesn't understand, social norms, and is just, he's going to keep trying to communicate, and he doesn't recognize that it's not appropriate. But being inappropriate does not equal being criminally responsible. So that's why there has to be a mens rea. There has to be a criminal intent before, before there's responsibility on that. And I feel like, I'm tempted to say there must be something more to the case that I just, that would explain, and I could have an aha moment about how they would arrive well, you're saying that the Supreme Court overturned the conviction, right? Because there was no
Yes.
mens rea. So that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense to me. And it makes sense that the lower court got it wrong and allowed the conviction to stand, and call it stalking. But yeah, that's the thing. When I said that in most situations, stalking statutes require you to, as a victim, to tell the person to leave you alone and stop communicating with you, that kind of sets up that mens rea, that guilty intent. Because if you're not told point blank, do not communicate with me any further, and then the other person, doesn't continue to communicate with, if the victim stops communicating after telling you to stop communicating with them, then a reasonable person would go, oh, I need to stop communicating with them, right? Even if you have, if you're on the autism spectrum or whatever, at that point you've been given fair notice, stop. I'm going to involve authorities, or whatever
Right.
the case is. But if
At that point,
person,
if not sooner.
yeah. But two things: if someone in this case never even told the person to stop, then it could just be that they're just a fan of someone and they've continued to try to, connect with them, and they weren't told that they were doing wrong. Okay. But you could have a scenario if someone tells you, like, if you called me regularly and, I said to you, you need to stop contacting me, but then I started contacting you about other stuff, and then so we have communication back and forth again, and I'm essentially giving you mixed messages, then that's not a clear direction to stop communication either. And that comes up a lot with, I used to do a lot of divorce and custody cases, and, parenting time disputes and things, and people would allege that they're being harassed by the other parent, or their soon to be ex-spouse or something. And it's like, well, it depends, because depending on if you're engaging in conversation, now if it's about kids and you have to exchange information about drop off or pick up or homework assignments or something, that's one thing. But if you're just like, hey, we're going to go and hang out on Sunday, do you want to join us, or whatever the case is, then you've blurred that line of supposedly saying don't contact me anymore. You know what I mean? So at any rate, those two situations can negate any kind of stalking or harassment claim. So I'm glad the court did the right thing. That's good news. You're telling me there's good news there. So that's great.
Mm-hmm. So I'm finding some commonality here between me and Wayne Myers, and only recently did I learn about this case. And since then, I've been watching those lives and listening to him in the jail calls and everything, and it's just fascinating to me. And some of the commonalities between me and what's going on in my case is that I'm also a constitutional activist. I'm well known in my community. I do First Amendment audits. Haven't made it very big, but I do my little part in my little community. And cops know that. They don't like me. They don't like that I hold them accountable, and kind of feel like there's some retaliation kind of going on. But I do have some good officers, and I know where the good ones are, because some good ones have come out in support of me. But in this case here, I feel like it was a good time for the...
Hold on a second. Liberty Warrior, did you hear that? This is a First Amendment auditor who's saying there are good officers. So I have people that are doing the work that agree with me that officers do exist. Okay, anyway.
Although I would say that it's a few good apples.
Oh, yeah.
I like putting it that way.
Yes. Well, if it's okay with you, I have somebody that's tried to call in 3 times, and I want to be able to see what their question is. So is that all right if I switch over? Oh, it's making it hard to hear you. Are you there? Derek, did I lose you?
Sorry, no.
Oh, shoot. Okay, Derek, are you there?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm still here. I heard you.
Is it all right if I switch over and answer their question?
Sure. Would you like me to call back another time?
Oh, and you're cutting out again. Would I like what?
I can call back another time. Thank you.
Yeah. Please call back in 2 weeks. I'll be live again, and I'll answer any other questions that come up.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, have a great day. Okay. Oh, hello. This is Catherine. Can you hear me?
Yes, Catherine. Thank you for offering the opportunity to speak with you for all the people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this You Have Rights, Cops Have Duties?
Yeah, this is You Have Rights, Cops Have Duties.
And what state are you calling from?
I'm not calling from a state.
Oh, where are you calling from then?
Okay. Just like the last caller, I'm a lot like Lane Myers. Only thing is I'm not an auditor per se. I've been living in the county since 1994, since I was 11 years old, and the first time I got arrested for free speech issues was 12 years old. So,
wait, you
I've
got
been
arrested in the U.S. or you got arrested elsewhere?
Yeah, I got arrested in the U.S. at 12 years old for free speech issues. I moved to a county. My stepdad was actually a deputy. He got a job as a deputy in the county, so we moved out to this county in the middle of Nevada, and basically, yeah, we moved there when I was 11, and when I was 12 years old, I got arrested. I was like 12 or 13, probably. I was, somewhere right there. That song, "Give Me Fuel, Give Me Fire, Give Me That Which I Desire" came on the radio that morning when I was getting ready for school, and my teacher's name was Mr. Burns, so I made a funny little jingle. Give me fuel, give me fire, give me a match so I can burn Mr. Burns. Because his name Burns rhymes with Burns, or with burn. But anyways, it was a stupid little jingle, but they treated me as if I was a criminal making some sort of death threats when I had no fire, I had no fuel, I had no matches. I couldn't have burnt Mr. Burns in that 7th grade classroom. And that's basically what I'm trying to say is there was no criminal intent and no exigent circumstance, but they still put me in jail for threats. But
I will say that is a little different, though. I mean, that is.
I've been.
And I'm not saying that it was. I'm not saying that it was handled.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it was handled correctly. There's a lot of pieces I would like to learn more before I, had an opinion one way or the other. But as far as the circumstances, that literally is a threat of imminent harm to someone about burning. Now, granted, at 12 years old, I have an 11. Why are you on the floor? Sit, child. Sit.
Have you ever heard that song "Cop Killer"?
I may
If you've ever heard the song "Cop Killer,"
I may have.
you
I don't know.
understand that. Dang, those guys are a lot more threatening than whatever I said, and that's still considered art. It's not. It's an expression, not a threat. A threat consists of exigent circumstances, and it has to be supported by actual intent to cause criminality.
But and intent can be inferred by specificity too. So when you have a song that's talking about
the intent is conferred by the exigent circumstances. Like if I said, "Give me fuel, give me fire, give me a match so I could burn Mr. Burns," and I had a match, now you got criminality.
Well, no,
if I'm
going to disagree with you
because I said, "Give me fuel, give me fire."
But hold on a second, because comparing it to a song that is, meant to be, whatever, hurt. And I didn't hear the song, so I don't know. I'm just speaking in general. But a song that's basically like against cops or against whatever, and saying, that they should be given what's due to them or something like that. If there's no specificity there, then that's
there's no
totally
individual
different.
target. Yeah, that's
But
where
you're
they.
talking
Yeah,
about,
that's where they probably could have thought that I had some sort of exigent circumstances because I said Mr. Burns, indicating a clear and present target.
yes,
Except for
exactly.
they didn't really do any investigation because then they would understand that there was no intent. But they didn't give a shit about intent, just like they always do. Is they don't care about intent anymore because many people don't even understand preponderances of fact or creating any sort of a basis for to prove these preponderances. To this day, people just do what they're told, and they even believe the things that they read over the cognitive ability to discern what would be right as opposed to what would be wrong.
Well, and here's the thing, even when it's, someone who is in our country, I don't know what you're talking about doesn't sound like you were even an illegal immigrant. So as far as that part of the conversation goes, I'm a little confused about that. But even if it
No, I'm not
wasn't
human.
even if it was an illegal immigrant, though, and you're talking about a child, um, common sense would dictate that, there'd have to be some sort of investigation about that. So it's not just, and that was a different.
Yeah, they just slapped on the cuffs and took me on to jail. There was no investigation, right? You know what I mean?
And
That's what you're describing. It should have been a more hefty investigation. They should have, got down to the reasonable articulated suspicions and the probable cause, but they didn't.
Well,
They just.
Well, it sounds like there was reasonable articulated suspicion in specifically burning another specified human being. I'm going to say that I think there was some area to be concerned about, and
well,
I would say
if I had matches or
well, hold on a second, but I would say that they had enough concern that they probably would be legit in detaining you while they did an investigation. But
a 12-year-old making an artistic expression, they had enough to lock up that 12-year-old with his artistic expressions.
Well, again, even if it wasn't something that could be deemed as artistic expression, you're still talking about a 12-year-old child that even if they meant it, they should be getting treatment. They shouldn't be getting locked up. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. That would be at least a good starter, treatment. They don't even know how to treat anybody. They even call their shit corrections, and they don't correct nobody.
I know. And I say that, I mean, especially, I have a special spot for juveniles because when that was my, a main portion of my work as a public defender was representing kids in juvenile delinquency cases. And it's a broken system. The whole freaking system is broken. Every state it's broken. I can't speak to other countries, but
that's particularly why I like you, is because you can comprehend these things,
from the inside. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, something happened to you which made you realize that, wait a second, I'm sitting here trying to do what's right, and they're not even trying. They're just trying to slap things on me. And I'm having to defend myself against these unfounded allegations. And then you kind of said, wait a second, now I'm sitting here as a registered, like a licensed attorney who's supposed to have all this stature, and they're coming at me sideways like they do the normies. Now I'm going to fight for my rights. I'm going to fight for my husband and our family and our home. That's what I took from what your experience, you know what I mean?
Well,
I'm proud of you too, by the way.
But you need to know that I had that fight in me long before I was singled out. And
exactly.
In fact, I was singled out, and they did that to me because I was already fighting for the average person. I was already fighting for everyone, especially when COVID hit. I was the only attorney that stood up and publicly on news channels, on radio stations, on any platform that would give me airtime, I stood up and told them all that what the governor was doing was illegal and it was unconstitutional, and we didn't have to follow her
Yeah.
executive orders. And so I was on the governor's radar and the attorney general's radar. I later found out I was on the FBI's radar I was on their radar since April 30th, 2020, when I stood on the steps of the Capitol and gave my speech. And then I went inside and tried to diffuse the situation between those protesting and the cops who were illegally keeping us out of sitting in on the legislative session that day in Lansing. So I don't want you to feel like I only started this fight after they came out for me. Oh, hell no. No, I was in this fight long before they came after me. In fact, go back 10 years ago, they came after me in a smaller scale, a city manager and a city council where we were living in a small town of 5,000 people. They came after me because I first was going to city council meetings as a concerned citizen and speaking on how they were violating the rights of other citizens in our community. And I would go every meeting and speak on something else, another law that was broken. And I wouldn't just complain. I would tell them how they could fix it at every meeting. And the city manager didn't like it. And she said, I'm going to make a list of all the people that have been coming and speaking against my actions. And I'm going to start with Catherine Henry. And I was warned by someone in the fire department who knew of this. And they warned me that I was at the top of the list. And I said, that bitch can bring it, because I'm not stopping what I'm doing. It's not right for her to be violating people's rights like this. And she did. She tried to make my life a living hell. And it made me violently ill for the better part of a year when I had a newborn who's now an 11-year-old sitting next to me. But just so you know, the chicken and the egg here is that I was speaking out first, and that then made me a target. So I didn't wake up because I became a victim myself. I put myself in the line of fire.
The striking ill feeling that you got by being maliciously targeted and persecuted and prosecuted was what's known as duress. And the public agents today seem to think that nobody can be placed under duress by their actions. And they seem to act like they don't know what a conflict of interest is. And the thing I was going to say about it is that what Ron DeSantis was doing was more than illegal. What those mandates are is unlawful. More than illegal.
You're talking about unlawful. Governor DeSantis's mandates?
Yeah, Governor DeSantis, the mandates, the executive orders. What they were was more than illegal. They were unlawful, because you were saying that you recognize them as illegal.
No. I wasn't down here in Florida. I was in Michigan then. I'm talking about Governor Whitmer's executive orders.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about DeSantis.
Oh no, as far as I know, it was free down here in Florida.
Executive order was unlawful more than illegal. It was unlawful.
Well, that's the same thing. I mean, saying illegal and unlawful is essentially the same thing. It is.
No, there's a big difference between legal and lawful. And the Marbury versus Madison case, over 200 years old, established clearly that there was a difference between legal and lawful. Because what Madison was trying to do to Marbury was decided by the lower court as legal. But then upon appeal to a higher court, it was decided that what Madison was doing to Marbury might have been legal, but it was unlawful. And then the higher court they try to trick us by saying that's what established judicial review. That the whole case of Marbury versus Madison is so important because it established judicial review. But no, the whole the basis of Marbury versus Madison, which is so important, is to distinguish to all the people of the nation that what is legal may not be lawful, and that you should always be checking to see whether what they're saying is legal to do to you is lawful to do to you. Because they will instantly try to get you to believe that legal is the same as lawful, when in fact the two different words are two different words for a reason. And this is how they do you. They do legalese.
But here's the thing: it's not. It's all bullshit. what you're talking about is all bullshit, and I don't care what any Supreme Court says, because all that matters here is the Constitution. Legal and lawful, same meaning. Picking apart words is not.
No, it's not the same meaning.
But
it's not the same meaning because just
what is
like
your point? What is your point? Hold on.
what Madison was trying to do to Marbury was
You've
legal,
gone on
but it was
you've gone
not
on a
lawful.
monologue about this, and I want to know what is the point between saying something is legal versus lawful. What the hell's the point?
Because if I can get you, legalities are like state policy,
No.
which they call state statute, and they try to enforce that on you as if it was state law.
It is.
Right?
Statutes are laws.
Law.
Statutes are
Those
laws.
are legalities.
No, that's literally what it is in our country. Watch my. Okay, before you want to. Okay, listen. Before you hold on a second. Before you want to take a fight with me on this, watch my videos that I've done specifically. Hold on. What I'm trying to say is, before you want to talk about and have a disagreement on this point, watch my videos where I've talked specifically about what a law is, what's legal, what's not. I have videos specifically talking about that. Policies are not legal. Executive orders are not laws. Resolutions are not laws. Okay? So there's a lot that you... No, that's not the case. That is not the case at all. Our Constitution...
Can I explain then if you believe that it's not?
Not today.
If you believe that it's not the case, let me explain.
No. Next... Listen. I've had this show going for 2 hours now. I need to eat something. I'm still trying to recuperate from all my cancer surgeries. I can't go indefinitely. No, I'm not. I'm drawing a line in the sand. If you want to bring up a whole new topic, listen.
I shouldn't have called in the beginning.
Yes. So if you want to bring up a whole new topic like that, first, I don't want to hear anything you have to say.
That's not a whole new topic. It's actually the topic we're talking about.
Listen to me. You need to watch the video where I talk about what laws are and what they're not. Watch that first, and then call in. Listen. You're not being respectful to me. Listen. Then call in my next show, and we can talk about it from there. That's all I'm saying to you.
I don't think it would be profitable for as far as time management to call in the next show, especially when I basically went out of my way to go and call in, and I'm appreciative of you having these things to call to people, but I think that you're worried that the conversation is going to turn into too big of an argument to even try to get down to the basis of these things, and that you've already been on for like 2 hours, so it would be not, you think that it might not be good for you to sit here and argue with me, which I don't really need to argue. I would like to be able to point a couple things out to you, and then hopefully you'll be able to discern what I'm speaking about.
I guarantee you I have the discernment. It's not like you're bringing up something new. I'm telling you I disagree with you.
Let me tell you something about state powers, because you think that their state statutes are state laws. State powers are granted to the states under the 10th Amendment. But the only thing is that it specifically says that those powers are limited powers, and that under Amendment 9, which comes before Amendment 10, says that no rights can be used to deny or disparage any other rights. So basically, any powers given to the United States or to the states are highly limited by what it says in the 9th Amendment. And on top of all of this, countries the federal government makes laws. States make policies. The state is an agency under the federal executive branch.
No, I'm not. Okay, yeah. So no, that's bullshit. States make laws for their citizens, but what I'm telling you is...
They call themselves...
No.
They're specifically statutes, though, by the way, man.
No, you're full of shit.
They're specifically statutes, by the way, man.
Listen. Statutes are statutes. The difference is, if a statute is not constitutionally enacted, then it's void on its face. That's the only thing that makes it unlawful, illegal, you name it. Okay?
No, not quite though.
100%.
The state will grant a permit. The state will grant a permit to somebody dumping oil all over the top of my fucking land, and then when they grant that permit, that dumping of oil just became legal. But to me, the human being, I will never
no.
consider it legal.
That's
It will
not,
always be
you're missing
unlawful.
what I'm saying.
I don't care how
You're
many
missing,
permits
stop,
the
stop.
state
You're
grants.
missing what I'm saying. I'm not saying getting a
No, I'm not
permit
missing
makes
what
it
you're saying.
legal. I'm not,
I understand exactly what you're saying.
no,
I
you're
just have a
not,
higher
because you haven't
comprehension.
listened to me talk about the Ninth Amendment. I've argued that. In fact, listen to my speeches I just gave to the Florida legislature. I brought up the Ninth Amendment. I'm a big advocate for our rights, and you can't deny others other rights just by the fact that we have listed certain rights in our state constitution or in our U.S. Constitution, that you can't deny others that haven't been enumerated. I know exactly about the Ninth Amendment, but the Ninth Amendment, pairing that with the 10th Amendment, where you make your big leap, is to say that state statutes are policies, and they're not. They are actual laws. Now, here's the thing. 90 to 95% of laws need to actually be taken out because they're not constitutional. But if a law is constitutionally enacted, then it's a law. It has to be enacted by
what
the
you're saying is
legislature.
that if it's not repugnant to the Constitution of the federal constitutional republic, then it can be considered as a law. And I understand that, and I agree with that. The only thing I'm saying is that it can be considered a law, but the people of the nation who are not the employees of the union need to comprehend and understand that what they are trying to uphold on you, that they try to call state law, are mere statutes, a policy made by the agency known as the state, under the federal executive branch, under a department. And before we were getting all adverse,
hold on. I need you to pause, because the federal executive branch, you're saying department, that has nothing to do with state statutes.
Yes,
you are
conflating
ideas.
Okay. There's a flow chart. You can look it up you can Google this. There's a flow chart.
I'm not interested
diagram.
in some bullshit flow chart. I'm literally telling you it's wrong to say that state statutes come from the federal
government. Then the cabinet, the State Department's under the cabinet, okay? And then under the State Department, you have the several agencies operating for the State Department, which the State Departments are operating for the federal executive branch. And before we became adverse, I was going to have you read something so that you could get a better understanding of what I'm talking about.
With actual states and State Department stuff,
the states are agencies under the federal executive branch.
Have nothing to do with state statutes. You're mixing up two different versions of the word state.
Please, miss, can you pull up on Google 5 CFR 2635.102?
No.
Well, then let me read it read it.
Listen.
Oh my God. You're an attorney.
Okay, because you're talking about things that literally make no sense. And you're being disrespectful.
Your title to your show today is Liberty Lawyer Takes Your Legal Questions.
Yes, it was for alliteration
purposes. That's all I know
purposes.
You're an attorney, because if you were a lawyer, you'd be dealing with law.
I am legality. A lawyer. I am a lawyer. Okay. Wow. The bullshit was at an all-time high there. Listen, guys, I'm all about trying to have an open and honest discussion, but I don't need to be anyone's doormat. I'm not your personal verbal punching bag. I don't need you to be disrespectful and overwhelming. And I just don't need the bullshit. Okay. So, I'm going to put the links on there because I haven't put those on the screen yet. And oh my goodness. Liberty Warrior, not you too. Seriously. I don't give a shit what's in the United States Code. It has nothing to do with saying that state statutes are policies. That's just stupid. I mean, literally stupid. All the question that we should be asking is if any statute, whether it's a state statute, whether it's a local ordinance, which is a local statute, or whether it's a federal statute, the question we should be asking is Is it constitutional? If it's not constitutional, then it's void on its face. That's all that matters. We don't need to play games with legal and lawful and all that other bullshit and what he's talking about with I'm not a real lawyer, I'm only an attorney. That is just some stupid shit. It is stupid. It's literally stupid. So I don't, Liberty Warrior, dude, shame on you. It's not. All that bullshit is not codified in the United States Code. I'm frustrated because what I want to do, as he said, I used alliteration in terms, I don't care if I say asking your legal questions or asking your lawful questions, all that's just stupid, okay? What I wanted to do is say answering your constitutional questions, but that changes the whole alliteration purpose. And Direct D was the one that kind of gave me that new layout for how to draw attention to the title of the lives. And obviously it worked because we have somebody calling from outside of the country, and it was an area code that's definitely not in the US. So, that's why I wanted to make sure that I did answer his call. But Liberty Warrior killing me. Liberty Warrior says, will the government throw you in a cage for an unconstitutional statute? You mean, will they throw you in jail or in prison utilizing an unconstitutional statute? If that is what your question is, then you and I both know the answer is sure, it happens all the time. But that doesn't give credence to any of the bullshit that state statutes are policies. And all the other nonsense that state statutes come from the State Department as part of the executive branch and has something to do with the Chevron doctrine. Like, what the hell? That has nothing to do with anything. The State Department and all the federal level agencies are a separate thing going on from state legislatures. They're separate entities. State legislatures should exist. They should exist. They're corrupt, but as an entity, they should exist. Federal agencies should never exist because those are unelected bureaucrats that don't belong in a constitutional republic. But state legislators are elected. They belong in a constitutional republic. So anyway, the whole thing is nonsense. I don't know if there are... So let me see here. I don't know if there were questions. What? Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just looking for if I missed any other questions or anything here, and it doesn't look like I did. So at any rate, if you guys asked any more questions that I missed in the meantime, I apologize. But anyway, what I wanted to say is I kept that caller on as long as I did, regardless of the ridiculousness of what he was saying, because I felt like he might actually have a legitimate question in there somewhere. And I wanted to be able to try to answer his question. But I don't host a show and go through all this to have someone just verbally vomit a bunch of ridiculous nonsense. If he wants a platform to be able to do that, he can have his own YouTube channel to do that, or Facebook or whatever, and that's fine. But this is not the place to do that because I don't agree with that nonsense. And there were many things along the way that I paused him on because he goes on a huge monologue and then he gets to a point of one of his premises and they're totally based in bizarre non-reality. We can't continue the conversation then because the premise is faulty. So at any rate, I do want to make sure that people have the opportunity to call in and ask legal questions because there aren't a lot of attorneys that do that. And I'm not going to be able to provide answers on every question, but any question that I can, I will. And We've helped people in virtually every state at this point have called in, from Louisiana to Pennsylvania to Vermont, Alaska. We've had more than one person call from out of the country. Certainly lots of people from Michigan and Florida, but California, Nevada, you name it. There's been a lot of people calling from a lot of different states. And I'm glad to be able to point people at least in the right direction about, what kind of law to look up or what kind of an attorney to look for in their case. And whatever help that I can provide when I don't know state specific statutes or the specifics of a state constitution, I'm going to give you the answers that I have, but I'm not going to make something up if I don't have the answer. But in the meantime, I'm also not a verbal punching bag. So keep that in mind. If you want to call in, just be respectful. Get to the point with whatever your question is so that I can answer it and move on. These shows are not supposed to be more than 2 hours because I just simply don't have it in me at this point. But let's be honest, how many people are going to go back and watch a 2-hour long show? It's just not as likely. And the whole point is to try to continue sharing and spreading knowledge about the law and the Constitution. So I don't care what an federal employee is. At this point, I don't care. And a CFR, ask Foshin what my opinion of CFRs is. Code of Federal Regulations. That's not even statutes. Those are not constitutional in nature. That is part of the administrative state. So you're asking me to look up administrative regulations as the basis to support whatever nonsense you're pushing when it should not even be a regulation at all. Ask this as a public service. Go ahead, ask him my opinion on CFRs or anything that comes from administrative agencies. I'm not going to look it up. I want nothing to do with CFRs. So with that, as Lori says, please be sure to join us for our next show, which apparently is April 22nd. Yeah, seems about right. April 22nd at noon. What? Okay, listen, just because you came on as you have rights, cops have duties, and then you came on now as frugal pigeoners, okay, does not mean that the answer is any different. Like I said, I wanted you to stay on the call as long as possible to enable you to get out whatever question you may have had so I could provide an answer and we could move forward with things. I told you initially when you asked at 1:07 for me to give you 15 minutes to load your card or phone or whatever it was, that I had no interest in staying on for a whole nother 15 minutes. But I ended up doing so, and then I took your call, and it was quite a lengthy call for you to be verbally abusive to me. Just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean you have the right to be disrespectful. You called into my show, not the other way around, and I don't owe you anything. I don't owe you looking up any CFRs. I don't owe you listening to a tirade of nonsense. I don't owe you for me to spend my time looking up and doing Google searches for some, what did you say, flow charts that are full of bullshit nonsense. I don't have an interest in doing that, and I'm simply not going to do that, and I don't owe you that. I don't even owe you having answered the phone call, but I wanted to help in whatever way I could. Clearly, you're not interested in actually having a productive dialogue where I can answer some sort of legal question. But the fact that you're saying that you are just normal and I'm the licensed attorney, so I'm the right one, that's not what I said at all. But if you want to put words in my mouth, then please, by all means, do that somewhere else, because this channel is to create a productive forum to help educate people on the rights and responsibilities that we have here. And certainly, as citizens, we need to be far more informed than we are. And I'm the first one to say when I don't have knowledge on an area. I'm the first one to say it. That's why I didn't answer a few questions at the beginning of the show, because I didn't have the specifics. I didn't have the information necessary to be able to provide an answer. But when I do have knowledge on something, I'm not going to cater to nonsense because a caller has lost their damn mind and think that their nonsense and their conspiracy theory bullshit is somehow going to override the knowledge that I have. Call in somewhere else, I guess. I don't know. Regardless. Yes, I did. I hung up on you when you were repeatedly disrespectful and you were laughing instead of doing what I asked. It was very simple. I have short videos that I did 2 years ago now on what a law is and what a law is not. And because you were going down a road of nonsense, I asked you to take a look at that video, the one video in particular about what a law is and what a law is not. Take a look at that video and then call into the next show. That is all I asked you to do, so that we could have a discussion where you're at least coming from a little bit more informed perspective. What would it hurt you to listen to a short video on my take on that? Nothing. It wouldn't hurt you at all. And if you don't want to hear what my take is on the most basic of all things, of what is a law and what is not, then why bother calling in? There's no sense in you calling in, because you don't care what my informed opinion is. And that's what the point of this show is. So, yes, Liberty Warrior. I wish I could put that up on the screen right now, but with OBS, it's a little too hard and it'd take me an eternity to figure out how. But administrative code is 100% unconstitutional. That is exactly correct. There should be absolutely no administrative code, not at the local level, not at the state level, and not at the federal level. No administrative code. What did you do? Okay. No administrative code should ever be in place here in the United States because it goes against all notions of a constitutional republic. Oh, okay. I'm not sure if your username is cut off or if it's short for something I don't understand, but NDER. I appreciate your explanation of the other person, the caller's perspective and where they're coming from. That kind of explains things a little bit, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that. So, okay. Anyway, so thank you to the rest of you for calling in, for asking questions. And I forgot the name of our Nevada caller today. I mean, Derek was your name, but your handle, I think it was Blue Line Transparency, maybe? Yes, Blue Line Transparency. So I appreciate your call, and hopefully I was able to answer the questions and topics you were calling in about. I didn't mean to unnecessarily cut you short. But anyway, so I appreciate all of you being on board with us today. I do want to let you guys know of some resources. I put them on the screen, but for those who are going to be listening via podcast later on, the main website is restorefreedomkh.com. And even to our angry caller, if you would still be interested in trying to gain some more knowledge about this and further any kind of conversation, I'd encourage you to go there and type into the search bar any of the topics that you talked about, but certainly look for what is a law. You should be able to search that topic and it should bring you up with the videos that I talked about it. And I think I even had slideshows and other things back then that I was using regularly. If you support my work and even have a one-time donation of $5 that you can contribute, it would be greatly appreciated. It cost me, I want to say it was $3,000 in 2024. It cost me $3,000 to keep the newsletters, be able to do these shows, all that, all that stuff going. And that is the most bare bones of an operation that I could possibly do and still do anything of value for you guys. So if you can, please contribute. You can do that at restorefreedomkh.com/donate. I did recently, a couple weeks ago, revamp the entire page on my website talking about the Ormond Beach case that is currently being decided by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, District Court of Appeals here in Florida. And sorry, not Fifth Circuit, Fifth District Court of Appeals. I knew that sounded wrong. At any rate, so if you go to restorefreedomkh.com/OB case, you'll be able to see the new layout. There's been a lot of things. Basically, in 2024, things started happening simultaneously at all three levels, the magistrate level, the circuit court level, and the Court of Appeals. And it became so overwhelming, I could no longer just keep things chronological. I had to break them down essentially by court so you guys could see things a little bit easier and understand, oh, this is what's been filed in this court, and this is what's been filed in this court, etc. And so I've put a lot of things there. There's a couple things I still have to add, some audio files of the hearings and things that I wanted you guys to have access to, and I haven't had a chance to go back and find those and put them on there. But take a look. There's a ton of documents that you can use for your own cases. Please feel free to use any of the legal resources I have on the website. In fact, if you just go to restorefreedomkh.com/resources, you'll be able to see the list of resources we have available, and I will constantly be adding more. So, John Q. Public, you said you have sent super chats on your channel. And in general, I kind of know what those are, but I don't. If you did that during today, I know that in the past I've seen, I want to say my friend 2A-EDU had done one, and I was able to see it in here, but I didn't see any come up today. So, and it didn't lose connection. I mean, I'm still seeing the YouTube chat pulled through OBS, and I have the YouTube Live control panel through YouTube Studio that's connected with OBS. I haven't seen any of that, so I'm not, if I'm missing something, if I'm doing something wrong, I apologize. I'm not meaning to not give credit where credit is due or not acknowledge you or something of that nature. I'm just not seeing it show up on my end. Anyway, I appreciate the support and I appreciate you doing that. So with that being said, I gave you guys that information. Like I said before, and I posted about this recently, take a look at the freedom fighting bills that are happening in the Florida legislature right now. We have some bills that need to still make it to committee agendas before they die. We have others that are on committee agendas and they need to be, we need to let the representatives and senators know that are on those committees that they should be voting favorably on those freedom fighting bills. And so I ask for you to be a little bit informed, go and look at in the last couple weeks, the bills that I've talked about. There's some Second Amendment bills that I've posted about. There's the medical freedom bills, the Patient Bill of Rights, the Parent Bill of Rights, the weather modification. Again, please, if you do reach out, tell the House to support House Bill 477 as originally written, not as amended. Please make sure that is very clear to them that they should essentially support the Senate version, which matches the original version as it was introduced in the House. So, Catherine, you may want to sign up for Buy Me a Coffee. What on earth is that? You're going to have to tell me what that is. Maybe you should actually buy me a coffee or Zevia, root beer Zevia, in person since you live here and tell me what you're talking about, because I have no idea what you're talking about. All right. So, all right. Thanks, everyone. Please do join us in 2 weeks. And I encourage you guys to call in. Certainly call in the beginning part of the show. And it's the same phone number. So even if I don't put it on the screen while I'm trying to answer other questions first that I'm seeing pop up in the chat and whatnot, please do. Great. Now I even have Lori laughing at me. Okay. So please do go ahead and call in. It's the same number all the time, 616-303-0093. I say that and watch, the number won't work next week and I'll have to do another phone number or something. But anyway, all right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign out, and I thank you all for joining me. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Our work to restore freedom would not be possible without support from people just like you. From the various software and hardware needed to the legal research materials, every dollar you can donate helps. Make sure to like and share this video too. And remember to follow and subscribe and click that notification button. Together, we can